This is a special note to all the single ladies and all the single brothers. Dating advice. You ready for this? Find somebody who is occupying their street, not watching you occupy yours. Holler back at a player if you see him in the street. Occupy. Find somebody who's occupying their street, not somebody watching you occupy yours. I have a belief with my daughters. My daughter's like, Dad, when is it going to be a good time to date? I'm like, never, girl. You're going to live here until you're 70. But I think dating, for the most part, is worthless and useless until you can actually do something about it. That's the first thing. So if you're occupying your street and you're doing great things, if you're in high school, for instance, I don't know who you're dating and what you're doing, because that guy you're dating, he ain't got no job. He has nothing to offer you just yet. I think it's a good idea to occupy your street and just keep on occupying your street. And then eventually, if you occupy your street faithfully enough, you're going to find somebody who's occupying their street. But here's what happens when people get a little bit lonely, especially when you start talking about single adults, which my church is full of. Like, it's one thing to claim purity, occupy my street, but you go through 2 Februaries of like Valentine's Day with your parents, and then it's like, and then your standards start dropping. Like, you used to want a man of the cross, and then 2 years later, a girl will just accept a guy that has a tattoo of a cross. My belief is that you can occupy your street in such a way where when you start getting romantically inclined, you don't have to get off your street and go search for somebody else. Oh, but he's sweet though. I don't care if he's sweet. Oh, but she's a good girl. A good girl? First of all, you want somebody who's about Jesus in such a way where the only way you can find this person is if you go so deeply into the things of God, because that's where they occupy all their time. I don't know what that is. You want to know, my dating advice is this. You ready? Listen, all the single people in here, in there. Here's how I believe you should occupy your street as a single person. You just run and you serve God. You're running. This is me running. And you pick your head up once in a while and you look around. If you see anybody that you think is attractive and they're occupying their street, you look down and keep running again. And then, maybe a couple years down the track, look around again. And if that same person's still running, great. Look down again and keep running and trust the soil that you're in. Because you know what's going to happen? At one point, you're going to pick your head up and you're going to continue to see this person that is running after God like you are. And if you're in the right soil, you're going to have somebody watching your race, a leader, a mentor, someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth when you don't want to hear it. And they're going to lovingly push you into another lane. You're just going to be like, this is awesome. And before you know it, it's going to be so obvious that that person is running the same race as you, occupying the same street as you, that you're not going to have the devastating testimony of so many people in our country that were going awesome for God, doing great things for Jesus, but then I started dating Ann. What if you changed the culture? And your only testimony was, I've been occupying my street. And I occupied Matthew 6:33, which is you seek first the things of God, and everything everybody else is chasing is going to land at your feet. That's how I found my wife. I remember the day I saw Laura Lentz. I remember the jeans she had on, #HeyGirl. And I remember I started a church stalk. And I don't believe there's any problem with that, meaning like everywhere she was, I ended up being there. Oh, I can't believe we're worshiping together in the same row. What's up, girl? I was volunteering at women's conferences, like randomly, like, hey, I'm just on the team here. And Laura was building the youth ministry at Hillsong Church. She very rarely ever had time for me, ever, because she was just busy occupying her street. I remember the first time I met her, I'm like, hey, Laura, I'm Carl. She goes, that's great, mate. And kept on going. I was like, oh my gosh, I love you. I got to have you. But if somebody you are interested in when you are down the road is really available, you might want to check why they're so available. I believe the most attractive thing somebody can ever do in the kingdom of God is serve Jesus like he's the only part of their picture. Not part of their picture, not a little bit of it. He's everything. So some of you who are occupying your street faithfully, wondering someday if God going to bring you the right person, absolutely. Some of you who've had horrible past history with making the wrong decisions as you've dated, why not make a fresh decision to stay occupied, planted, serving God, wide awake to all the things that could go wrong by getting out of God's soil and all the things that can go right. If I just occupy wide awake to the things of God, I can avoid so much heartache and pain.